Welcome back. The Lesbian Action Group has just launched their members club in Australia for gay women across the country to get together for social events and discussion groups. But they're still fighting the Australian Human Rights Commission for the right to host lesbian-only events. Because despite being legally allowed to marry, lesbians cannot legally assemble in a single-sex space without opening the door to men or transgender women. Joining me now is lesbian rights activist Carol Ann, who's leading her group's charge against the Human Rights Commission. This seems incredible that lesbians can't have a gathering for just lesbians. That seems...
It is incredible, yes. It is incredible, but the law says no.
Well, that seems incredible to me. Presumably some of the people who attend these lesbian-only events are wanting to find romantic partners, might be looking for a sexual partner, and being lesbians, you probably do not want to have males there or people with male bodies who, even if they identify as women. So why do transgender women who are not wanted in that space want to be in that space? Why are you having to fight to preserve it as a lesbian-only event?
Well, as I said, the Sex Discrimination Act and the state-based self-ID laws forbid us to do that.
Wow.
They've mixed up definitions of sex and gender and now sexual orientation.
Wow.
So that a man can self-identify as a woman, and then if he so chooses, he can then identify as a lesbian. So they've done away with biology altogether.
Well, that seems astonishing. And so someone can be a fully intact male. We're not talking about post-operative, but they identify as a woman, and they can even present as a man. They could be with a beard and looking like very male. But if they say, I'm a woman and I identify as a lesbian, you're obliged to allow them access to your lesbian-only event.
That's right. That's what the Australian Human Rights Commission said to us when we applied for our exemption last year, that we could in fact exclude heterosexual men, heterosexual women, gay men even, but we couldn't exclude men who identify as women and want to be lesbians.
It's almost like a comedy sketch, Carol. I know it's not funny for you because you're in the courts fighting this madness, but when you describe it like that, it sounds like a comedy sketch. It really does. You've been flying to Sydney to support Sal Grover. She's obviously the founder of the Girls Only app, Giggle for Girls. She's fighting discrimination lawsuit by a transgender woman, Roxanne Tickle. What have you learned from that court case, and what are your hopes of your own Australian Human Rights Commission appeal?
Well, I learned lots because the Australian Human Rights Commission contingent at Sal's case were there representing basically Roxanne Tickle and Roxanne's right to be on a women-only app. And so they were standing up in court saying, and these are the lawyers, the barristers for the Human Rights Commission, saying sex is not binary, sex is changeable, and we can all change our sex over the course of our life. And therefore, Roxanne is a woman, and therefore any man who rocks up to a lesbian event who says he's a woman and then says he's a lesbian, we can't refuse them entry.
It's not a great situation. You would think the Australian Human Rights Commission would be siding with women and siding for protecting women's spaces and women's boundaries, but we're not there. Carol Ann, thank you so much for your time this evening. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's it from me. Up next is News Night. I'll see you at 11 tomorrow. Good night.